All right, so for this video, I'm going to explain the mechanism of dream entry. And this is something that is really important to understand, right, about the way that dream entry works, especially if you're trying to maintain awareness, if you're trying to retain some awareness as you're falling asleep, if you want to directly enter into a lucid dream. It's important to know this distinction, right? And I'll zoom in here. I'll do a red X here, right? And I'll do a check mark here, because this is the primary sort of fallacy, right, that people fall into. Is whenever people think about entering a lucid dream, right, people think of it as like a linear, gradual thing, right? And it's very easy to think of it this way, because you go, like, whenever you're thinking about maintaining awareness, right, it's very easy to think of it as this sort of ooey gooey, you're going from awake to the dream, and this is like the line between the two, right? It feels like you're gradually entering the dream, and you're trying to achieve this perfect, like, halfway state, where it's just ooey gooey, and if you and you're trying to, like, perfectly maintain your awareness from A to B, right? But this is actually incorrect, because if you actually look at over here at the image of the sleep cycles, you can see that it's very, like, whenever you're falling asleep, it's very much like just a snap, right? It's very much like a blackout, as I say here. It's very much like a blackout. And in a lot of my successful attempts to retain awareness as I'm falling asleep, and a lot of my successful attempts to maintain that awareness, I describe in my dream journals, like, the way that I write it down, because I write down my experiences to sort of analyze what I did correctly. And a lot of times it'll be this blackout, that it'll feel like a jump cut, like 1 minute I'm focusing on my anchor, and like the next minute I'm in the dream, and like 5 seconds after the dream starts, I'll get lucid, because of the fact that because of the fact that this is the actual mechanism of dream entry. And if you look at the line here, right, you're going from awake to the dream, and a lot, like, what you're doing is you're staying awake, and this is like a reminiscent of a lot of my successful lucid dream attempts, where I enter straight into a dream, I teleport straight into a dream. It's very much like if you know quantum mechanics, if you know physics, right? It's very much like jumping an electron level, right? Whenever an electron absorbs the energy of a photon, it jumps to that next level, and there's no in between, and so it's quantized, right? That's where quantum mechanics comes from. But that's a sort of a complicated analogy, but like right here, you can see the line goes from awake to the dream, right? And what you're doing here, if you look at my mouse, like, you're going from awake, 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 and then, like, right here, you hit this sort of vertical sort of drop here, and then you're in the dream. Yet again, very similar to the actual graph here, right? This graph here, where it's very much like a sawtooth shape, or not a sawtooth shape, like, it's a square wave. It's shaped like a square wave, because of the fact that, like, whenever, like, it's like you're awake here, and then it's just boom to this stage of sleep, right? And that's very much how dream entry works. That's the mechanism of dream entry, is that it's very much like this sort of S curve right here, where you're awake, and then what happens is that what your body will do is it will generate the chemical mixture, and it will sort of roofie you into falling asleep. Basically, it's very much like a roofie. Like, you'll pass out, you'll black out. And another way that you can think about it is it's very much like a power surge in a building, right? It's like the power goes out, it flickers momentarily, and then the power comes back on right here, right? But in this sort of in between state right here, if you look at, like, this, where my mouse is, if you look at this sort of vertical drop, right, you'll note, and you'll notice this also, if you ask, like, anyone who's not into lucid dreaming, like what their sort of experiences of sleep is, like you're awake, you're just waiting for sleep, and then there's this sort of blackness, or the sort of blackout period, and then the dream starts down here, right? And so that's the way this is like the true mechanism for how dream entry works. It's not this gradual linear, you're trying to perfectly maintain awareness, and you're trying to, like, you're focusing on this, but you're also trying to get distracted with this, and it's like this linear sort of gradual entry. It's not a gradual entry at all. It's very much like this sort of square wave, or this sort of this S curve right here, where you're awake, and it's like, okay, you're having your waking thoughts, you're waiting to fall asleep, and then there's this drop right here, where your body sort of takes over, your body sort of forces you to fall asleep, and then there's this straight line here, where it's like the dream happens. And the goal here is to essentially focus on something here, And then like at the last moments here, like, my experience has been that your mental state, well, it's like your brain or your body or whatever. It's like it takes like a snapshot of like your mental state right at this sort of like event horizon point right here, where it's like the point of no return, right? Where if you're focusing on your anchor, if you have some awareness, right, like at this stage right here, when my mouse is circling right here, then you'll enter the dream with a similar awareness, and yet again, trying having this focus on teleporting into the dream with this, instead of having this sort of gradual linear, like trying to perfectly maintain awareness, trying to maintain a tedious balance. If you just, if you just go over here and you're focusing on your anchor in this awake state, right? And then you just wait for your body to black out. You're waiting for that loss of consciousness, right? Because you do have to sort of black out, sort of lose consciousness momentarily with that sort of like right here with this sort of vertical drop right here. Like if you're awake here and there's like this drop right here that sort of instantly transmits you to the dream state, right? So what you're doing is you're staying away, like is you're lying awake, you're focusing on your anchor, and you're waiting for that loss of consciousness. You're not trying to keep yourself awake. You're not trying to, and this is like the other fallacy, is trying to perfectly maintain awareness in this gradual sense, instead of just, you're focusing on something here and then you're allowing yourself to sort of black out and just like you're just instantly transmitting to the dream without any gap, without any of this sort of gradual ooey gooey, this weird gap right here, right? It's like an instant teleport into the dream world, right? And so that is something that I wanted to express, that I wanted to explain, because this mechanism of dream entry, if I look at like my historical records of all my dream journals, a lot of it, like it's very rare, or like if it happens at all, like rarely does this linear progression ever happen, right? It's not a linear gradual progression into the dream. Usually what'll happen is that I'll focus on my anchor, I'll focus on, that point of awareness that you're using to stay aware as you fall asleep. Like what you're doing, or what I do is like I'll focus on my anchor over here and I'll just wait, like just focus and wait, focus and wait, focus and wait, and then eventually I'll lose consciousness, and it'll be like it's like in video games or movies where it's like a fade to black, and then the cutscene begins, right? It's like a cutscene in the video game, where essentially what you're doing here is you're focusing on your anchor, you're just waiting, you're waiting, and then it's like fade to black in this sort of vertical drop here, and then all the way into the dream right here, like the cutscene starts, and usually if I do it correctly, and this is a mental block that I've encountered in recent times that I need to sort of let go of, and I wanted to warn other people about this. Like usually what'll happen is like 5 seconds after the dream starts, I'll get lucid because of the fact that I teleported into the dream. I acknowledged that this sort of instant transmission to the dream state, instead of trying to achieve, instead of trying to, do this and trying to perfectly maintain your awareness like this, right? In the sort of linear fashion, you're sort of acknowledging, yet again, if you look at this graph of how sleep cycles work, you're acknowledging that there's this sort of instant drop into the dream world, and during that time, yet again, it's very much like a power surge. It's very much like well, like you're temporarily losing consciousness, you're blacking out in order to enter the dream. And so the goal here is that you're focusing on something until you black out, and then like the next thing, so it's like 1 minute you're focusing on your anchor, and like the next thing you know, you're in this vivid dream scenario. And because of the fact that there's no mental gap, it's like you've just teleported there. You're like, I'm focusing on my anchor, I'm focusing on, and it's like, like you're in this dream scenario, because of the fact that you're in that you've retained awareness until that blackout period. You're retaining awareness into those last moments before your body forces you to black out, right? That awareness is carried over into the dream without any gaps, right? And so that is how that is the mechanism for how dream entry works. It's not this gradual thing. It's not a linear thing at all. It is very much like a blackout. It's very much like an instant, like teleporting into the dream world, where essentially you have like this this line right here where you're awake, and then there's this almost vertical drop into the dream. And in this vertical drop, in this sort of let's call it the event horizon right here, you're losing consciousness temporarily. It's like it's like a power surge. It's like momentarily your brain is sort of blacking out, and you have no memory of any in between state. So like that is the correct way. Yet again, this is based on my personal experiences with lucid dreaming. This is not me talking out of my ass and just making random graphs. Um, in my successful attempts to maintain awareness, where I'm focusing on my, where I'm holding that stress ball in my left hand, and I'm retaining awareness of that anchor as I'm falling asleep. This right here, that this green graph, this is how it feels to enter the dream, where there's like I'm awake, I'm focusing on my anchor, and I'm waiting for that blackout, and there's that vertical drop in that event horizon, and then I'm in the dream right here, I, and I'm in the dream right here where, because I focused on the anchor right here, and then I'm just instantly teleporting, I still have that lingering awareness of the anchor right here in the dream, and so I'm usually like, in like the really good attempts, I'll be able to become aware almost at the beginning of the dream, because I notice all the strange stuff, and like 5 seconds after I enter the dream, I'll get lucid, because of that instant transmission, because of the fact that I had that mentality of waiting for my mind to be to be transmitted, to be teleported into the dream through this blackout, through this event horizon, where you temporarily lose consciousness, and you're snapped into the dream, right? But like, the thing is like, what happens is that if you have this linear way of thinking about it, what happens is that you're doing this, you're giving yourself insomnia, because there's this sort of gap that you have to cross, this sort of quagmire that you have to broach, in order to get into the dream world. And whenever you create that mental gap, and you're trying to stay perfectly aware, in that perfect in between state, in that sort of tightrope balance, you're not allowing for this event horizon right here. You're not allowing for that blackout. You're not allowing for that jump cut that is necessary for you to actually enter the dream. You need to have that temporary sort of blip, in your awareness, that's the sort of temporary loss of consciousness, in order for you to transport yourself into the dream. So that is, basic dream entry, explained. That is the mechanism for how dream entry works. And like, the more you remove yourself from this gradual sort of ooey gooey, in between state, where you're trying to achieve, the perfect tightrope balance. Like, if you remove yourself from this incorrect paradigm, and you move towards this blackout paradigm that is modeled after the way that sleep cycles work. Yet again, if you acknowledge this sort of teleporting, this sort of blackout, where you're temporarily losing consciousness, and then the dream starts, where it's very much like teleporting into the dream. Like, you're awake, you're focusing on your anchor, and then boom, you're in the dream scenario. If you can have that mentality, that sort of approach, whenever you try your lucid dream technique, you're going to have a much better time, and you'll be able to enter directly into a lucid dream, instead of being, you know, stuck in insomnia over here, where you're trying to achieve that perfect tightrope balance. You're acknowledging this event horizon, this vertical drop here. You're acknowledging this mechanism for dream entry, which is not linear at all. It's very much like you're awake, and then like you black out. The next thing you know, you're asleep. And so if you can approach it with that correct mindset, instead of trying to do this all the time, and trying to perfectly maintain awareness and giving yourself insomnia, if you acknowledge that blackout, if you acknowledge that vertical drop, right here, where you're essentially blacking out, you're losing consciousness temporarily, so that you're teleported into the dream, instantaneously with zero gap, then you're going to have a much better time getting lucid. And this is like the entire point of maintaining awareness. You're going to enter directly into a lucid dream without any gap in between. There's not going to be an invisible gap that you're trying to cross, in order to achieve that lucid dream, because you're allowing your body, your physiology, your brain to force yourself to fall asleep, and to force yourself to black out, and immediately transport yourself into the dream, right? And yet again, this is a challenge that I'm working on right now. I'm trying to move out of this gradual way of thinking about dream entry, and I'm trying to move back towards, like those previous previous successful attempts, where it's very much like a blackout. It's very much like yet again, if you look at the sleep cycles right here, 1 minute I'm focusing on my anchor, then I'm just instantly transmitted, into REM sleep, into dreaming, right? So, but yeah, that's just a basic video, just sort of discussing the basic mechanism of dream entry, and sort of like the wrong way of thinking about it, and the correct way of thinking about how are dreams entered. What is the mechanism for dream entry, right? But yeah, that's the video.